Queen Consort Camilla has always been considered a rival to the incomparable Lady Di, and the cause of her downfall in 1997. When the truth about Camilla Parker Bowles surfaced, public opinion deemed her a wicked sorceress who destroyed the family hearth. It was only much later that it became clear this was true love, the kind that happens once in a lifetime if one is very fortunate. Over the many years, Charles was unable to suppress his feelings for his longtime friend and mistress, Camilla Parker Bowles. It was not until 2005 that the British monarch took pity and allowed the heir to legitimize his relationship with the woman he had sincerely loved all his life. In time, the Queen herself changed her anger to mercy and was able to accept Camilla into the family. Until her death, Elizabeth II permitted her grandchildren to enter into so-called unequal marriages. The eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip, was considered one of the most sought-after grooms in the 70s of the last century. However, as a bachelor, Prince Charles was not in a hurry to settle down. He simply enjoyed the relaxed and non-binding flirtations with charming admirers. But one of the women within the royal family's social circle still seriously caught his attention. A fateful meeting took place in the summer of 1970 at a polo match. The 23-year-old daughter of British Army Major Bruce Shand, Camilla, enchanted the heir to the British throne during their first encounter. He liked that Camilla had an amazing ability to smile with both her eyes and her lips. He was also pleased by the fact that they shared a similar sense of humor. Unlike other girls, Camilla did not try to impress Charles. She behaved naturally and lacked the aristocratic snobbery that irritated him, wrote biographer Penny Junor in the book The Duchess, An Untold Story. After the book was published, the British learned that in 1973, Charles pleaded with Camilla not to marry Officer Andrew Parker Bowles, and he spent the night before his own wedding in tears. They were further convinced that Camilla was the perfect match for Prince Charles. She was waiting for his proposal and was unhappy with him because Andrew openly cheated on her and never truly valued her. Nevertheless, as Penny Junor recounts in her book, Camilla was obsessed with the idea of marrying him. On the other hand, Lucia Santa Cruz decided that she deserved something better. For example, meeting the shy Prince of Wales. They met at Lucia's house. She specifically asked them to arrive at the party early. Prince Charles had previously described Camilla to Lucia as pretty, with a warm and natural disposition. After introducing them, Lucia stated that they now needed to be very careful. Everyone knew that Camilla's great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, had been the lover of Charles's great-grandfather, King Edward VII, for many years. Many members of the royal family marry their distant relatives. For instance, Queen Elizabeth II was not only the wife of Prince Philip but also his relative. The late Duke was her third cousin. Camilla and Charles also share a connection. They are ninth cousins once removed. Of course, this degree of kinship is quite distant, but it still exists. Some sources suggest that the future king and his chosen one may be even more closely related due to Alice Keppel, who was the king's mistress. According to Catherine Arnold's book, Alice had a daughter, Sonia Keppel, who could very well have been born from Edward VII. Since the king neither confirmed nor denied this information, and Sonia resembled the monarch, the possibility of such kinship existed, meaning Camilla also has royal roots. The Daily Mail published the memoirs of Petronella Wyatt, who became a witness to the burgeoning romance between Prince Charles and his future wife. For the first time, I met Camilla and her then-husband Andrew at the races in the late 1980s when I was 18 years old. It would be strange to watch her coronation because it was the last thing anyone who knew her then could have predicted for her. The day was windy, and the March sun barely warmed the air. Camilla and Andrew were late, but when they arrived, everyone noticeably perked up. Camilla Parker Bowles, born Camilla Shand, was not an aristocrat like Diana Spencer but the daughter of a provincial nobleman. Her unfashionable attire reflected her unpretentious nature. Her jacket was rumpled, and her hair was tousled by the wind. Her skin did not react well to the bad weather, but she had mesmerizing blue eyes, and her makeup consisted of only semi-transparent pink lipstick, making her unexpectedly attractive. She drank and smoked with aplomb. She joked ironically and indecently, and it was impossible not to feel her strength. However, no one back then imagined she would become queen. Perhaps these informal traits made her the perfect spouse for a 21st-century monarch. Pleasant, calm, and carefree. She was more likely to explode into laughter if her dress did not suit the event than to fall into righteous Windsor anger. Joan Parkinson had worked for the current fiancé of Prince Charles for over 3 years, serving as her personal secretary and, by her own admission, a good friend. Joan is a contemporary of Camilla Parker Bowles. She knows how to get what she wants, Joan said in an interview, requesting that her own name be changed for safety. Camilla has simply fantastic determination. It's no wonder Diana called her a Rottweiler loudly. The somewhat offensive but accurate. Mrs. Parker Bowles has an iron grip. Do you know how brilliantly she won the very first round by betting on Prince Charles? It was in Cambridge. The heir to the throne, according to the Windsor biographer, still gave the impression of a neglected child. He rarely saw his mother and was terribly afraid of his father. The then Miss Shand, Camilla's maiden name Mo, as far as I know, calculated the slightest nuances. And at the very first meeting, she stunned the prince with the question, "My great-grandmother was the lover of your great-grandfather. What do you say about that?" The prince was taken aback and fell in love. For life. When the prince and Camilla first met, love ignited between them, but Charles had to go serve in the Royal Navy, and their relationship was put on hold. Upon his return, it turned out that Camilla had already married Charles's friend, Andrew Parker Bowles, with whom she soon had a son. Tom Parker Bowles is exactly the name they gave the boy, and his godfather was the Queen's eldest son. Experts suggest that this move allowed Charles and Camilla to grow even closer and perhaps always be together. An interesting detail. Before his relationship with Camilla, Andrew Parker tried to court Princess and, the sister of Charles, but failed to win the monarch's daughter's heart. And they indeed got along immediately. Camilla was genuinely witty, open, and natural. They began to see each other whenever the opportunity arose. But Charles was 22, and those who decided his fate had other plans for him. He was undergoing military training, serving in the Royal Air Force. They met rarely, but in 1972, they began to spend all their free time together. In her book, Penny Junor claims that from the very beginning, they knew their romance couldn't end in marriage. Camilla was not of sufficiently noble origin to marry the future king. Moreover, she was still in love with Andrew Parker Bowles, despite his affairs with other women. However, this is just one explanation for why, in 1973, she waited for Andrew's proposal and married him, leaving Charles in despair. There are suggestions that Charles was waiting until his service was over to propose to Camilla. It was also claimed that Charles's cousin, Lord Mountbatten, wanted to marry Charles to his granddaughter Amanda Netchbull. Some think that the Queen Mother wanted the prince to marry one of the girls from the Spencer family, granddaughters of her friend Lady Fermoy. Incidentally, this is how it happened. From the royal family's perspective, Camilla did not suit the Prince of Wales in terms of status. Contrary to Queen Elizabeth's hopes, his feelings for Camilla deepened. They continued their meetings, and to somehow explain them, Charles became the godfather to Camilla's son, Tom. On the same day, Andrew received the Order of the British Empire from the Queen. In his youth, the prince was very sensitive and weak-willed. He never contradicted his parents, and this time was no different. That is why Camilla did not expect her beloved to renounce his titles for marriage to her, as his cousin Edward VIII had done in his time. As is well known, in 1936, he abdicated the throne to marry the divorced actress Wallis Simpson, publicly declaring, "I find it impossible to carry out my duties as king without the help and support of the woman I love." Shortly before the wedding, Camilla wrote a letter to the British prince who was in the Caribbean, telling him about her plans. The young man reacted emotionally to this message. He couldn't comprehend how the girl of his dreams could so quickly forget everything that was between them. In reality, Camilla had not forgotten anything. Yet another 4 years later, Camilla gave Andrew a daughter, Laura. Shortly after the girl's birth, the woman realized she had grown cold toward her husband. And at the end of 1978, Mrs. Parker Bowles resumed dating the future king of the United Kingdom. Interestingly, her husband was well aware of these rendezvous but did not prevent them. He himself loved to cheat. For a time, the participants of the love triangle were content. They calmly interacted at social events, and almost no one suspected that there might be something more than ordinary friendship between Charles and the married Camilla. About the lifestyle Prince Charles leads, his parents were well aware. In the early 80s, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip delicately hinted to their son that it was time to think about the future. At that time, the young man began dating a socially suitable girl, Lady Sarah Spencer. Soon, he ended the relationship because he set his sights on her younger sister, Diana. The charming blonde with the eyes of a frightened doe seemed extremely attractive to the prince, and he believed that one day he would be able to love her. Diana was very well liked by the family of the future heir to the throne. At one point, Prince Philip wrote a letter to his son, asking him to either peacefully part ways with the 19-year-old kindergarten teacher to avoid tarnishing her reputation or marry her. Charles was not in love with Diana. He was not ready for marriage at all. But at that moment, he decided that he could not refuse his father, recalled Prince Pamela Hicks, a friend of the prince, in an interview. However, the young man still decided to give up his status as a highly sought-after bachelor. He asked Diana Spencer to become his lawful wife. In July 1981, the couple had a fairytale wedding. Rumor has it that on the eve of the celebration, Charles cried in the presence of a friend and confessed that he felt nothing for his bride. He admitted that he still passionately loved Camilla, a cheerful, spontaneous woman who had no interest in fashion or expensive attire. Almost immediately after the wedding, Diana learned that the affair continued. During their honeymoon, Charles called Camilla every day. Naturally, this news was a blow to the young wife. But initially, she showed no sign of her disappointment. In public, the spouses behaved like a happy family. They smiled at each other and maintained all proprieties. But returning home after social events attended by Camilla, Diana often threw tantrums. Diana Spencer became not his chosen one but the Queen's chosen one. She was lovely and confidently believed that her tenderness and devotion would win Charles. Alas, nothing could be more beautiful than the marriage of Diana and the Prince of Wales. The celebration took place at St. Paul's Cathedral in London on the 29th of July 1981. In the first year after the wedding, Charles did his best. He faithfully followed Diana, smiled in public, and portrayed himself as a happy husband. But in his heart, the prince had room for only one princess. And that was not Princess Di at all. Diana blossomed. Everyone loved her. And how could anyone not love this angel with enormous eyes? But Charles became increasingly gloomy. I often feel as if I am in some cage, thrashing around and trying to break free. The prince wrote in his diary. Diana was angry. She couldn't understand what was wrong. Postcards from Charles came to the Parker Bowles household. Camilla reread the empty, meaningless words and barely held back tears. If he called, her daughter would answer the phone. She would shout into the receiver, forgetting that she was speaking to His Highness. "Leave Mom alone!" But, a year into the marriage, Charles moved to Highgrove in complete solitude. Diana did not want to exchange the palace for a little cottage in the village. While the prince was happy there, tending to his gardening, a hobby number one. Later, Diana would say that he moved there to meet his mistress. But this was not the case. He moved there trying to escape severe depression. But she caught up with him. "Camilla, you must call him," said Lady Emily Van Cotsum, a friend of Charles. "You don't understand how bad things are. He hardly eats, has become very thin, and has been silent for days. Only you can bring him out of this state. He needs someone who would treat him like you do. A friend with whom there is no need to pretend. Camilla hesitated for a long time, but left alone, she picked up the phone. Hearing Charles's voice, she uttered, "Hello," and she cried. Later, in a BBC interview, Diana would say that she allowed herself to fall in love with horse riding instructor James Hewitt only after learning that Charles had resumed his relationship with Camilla. But this is deceit. She also said that Charles began to cheat on her even before the birth of Prince Harry. And this is not true. Penny Junor, who wrote a sufficiently impartial biography of Camilla, now the Duchess of Cornwall, gathered convincing evidence that Camilla and Charles resumed their communication in late 1986, when Harry was 2 years old and Diana was already hosting Hewitt. Upon confessing their relationship, Charles was ready for anything but such hysteria. Diana was furious. He understood and felt sorry for her. It pained him to cause her distress, but he couldn't do anything. By 1990, the discord within the royal family had become public knowledge. England was stunned. Then a grand scandal erupted, unrivaled in its filth. The transcription of Camilla and Charles's phone conversation was printed in newspapers, in foreign ones first, then in English ones as well. The story was dubbed Camillagate. The whole world witnessed the intimate details of their conversations, in which the heir apparent expressed his desire to live in Camilla's pants and be her tampon. The conversation was clearly not intended for outsiders' ears, as the jokes were quite risque and concerned sexual attraction and the couple's intimate life. Upon hearing this indecent conversation, Princess Diana, who was still married to the prince, was shocked and called the conversation unhealthy. Following the public scandal, there was a television interview in which Charles confessed to marital infidelity. By 1997, both he and Camilla were already divorced, but they still could not be together, as it seemed Parker Bowles still did not consider her a suitable match for the heir to the British throne. Queen Elizabeth II openly disapproved of Camilla's behavior and even called her a venal woman. Moreover, the Queen Mother, whom Charles adored, could not stand Camilla. In addition to not being accepted by Charles's family, Camilla was also unpopular with the subjects. In the public eye, the future queen consort was seen as a prostitute who made the people's favorite, Princess Diana, unhappy. After some time, Charles and Diana officially divorced, although their marriage had effectively broken down much earlier. In December 1994, Camilla divorced Andrew, a union that had never been particularly warm and trusting. A year later, he married Rosemary Pittman, with whom he had long-standing relationships. Shortly before Diana's death, Charles attempted to restore his mistress's good name, whom he believed was the only woman in the world who understood him. However, he first needed to secure his mother's support. In 1995, he decided to have an open conversation with her. Being an adult and independent man, the prince delicately asked his mother how she would feel about his paramour moving in with him. Discussing the sensitive topic with Elizabeth II, who in this situation sided with his former daughter-in-law, was something he really did not want to do. The queen told her son that adultery was not recognized and would never forgive Camilla for destroying his marriage. "I do not want to have anything to do with that wicked woman," declared the ruler of Great Britain in her heart. According to Charles's biographers, this incident brought him to tears. He called Parker Bowles and complained about his mother, who even began to doubt that her son deserved the right to inherit the throne. Camilla supported her chosen one in such a difficult moment for him, informing him that she would love him despite everything. From the mid-90s, a kind of Cold War began between Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth II. The monarch refused to attend events where the heir's mistress was present. The Queen even ignored the 51st birthday of her son. Charles, on the other hand, demonstratively defended the rights of his beloved woman. In 1998, he secretly introduced his chosen one to his sons, who quickly bonded with her. A year later, the lovers were seen together celebrating Camilla's sister's anniversary. Their public appearance marked the first time the couple stepped into the spotlight after the tragic events of previous years. The ice began to thaw in 2000 when Elizabeth II found herself at the same reception as Charles and Camilla. The Queen gradually came to the conclusion that Camilla was not such a bad person after all, and most importantly, that she loved her son and was dearly loved by him. After the unthinkable event, the divorce of the heir apparent from his wife, Camilla and Charles would have married very quickly. But the tragic death of Diana made this impossible. The very next day near Kensington Palace, protesters appeared with placards bearing profanities and insults. The people demanded that Charles renounce the throne. The English monarchy endured various blows, but under the strain, it began to wobble. Charles contemplated abdication. Camilla became almost a recluse. Her father made a statement that the prince had disgraced their family. From that moment on, Diana became a saint. Forever. And Camilla was now assigned the lifelong role of the main villain in the love triangle. The lovers had to forget about the wedding for a long 8 years. In 2000, Charles officially introduced his beloved to Queen Elizabeth, and they received permission to live together. However, Camilla was still prohibited from appearing at official events. In 2004, after long requests and discussions with her mother, Charles received Elizabeth's diamond ring, which was intended for the engagement. In 2005, after more than 30 years of relationship, the Prince of Wales and his chosen one finally married. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip did not attend the civil ceremony, which greatly upset their son. However, the royal couple did attend the service, during which the Archbishop blessed Charles and Camilla in St. George's Church. Later, Elizabeth II arrived at the reception. "My son is in good hands. He is with a woman who loves him," declared the monarch during the celebration, surprising many. Despite years of criticism of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, often linked to the death of Princess Diana, their marriage withstood the test of time and challenges. In February 2022, in honor of the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, she addressed her subjects and requested that after Prince Charles's coronation, his second wife be considered the Queen Consort. "I remain forever grateful and indebted to you for the loyalty and affection you continue to bestow upon me. I know that in due time, when my son Charles becomes king, you will offer him and his wife Camilla the same support you have given me. And when that time comes, I sincerely wish that Camilla continues her faithful service as Queen Consort," read the official statement from Elizabeth II. In his response, Prince Charles thanked the Queen for this decision. He expressed confidence that his wife would remain a reliable support in everything and continue to loyally serve the monarchy in the future. It was important for the Prince of Wales that his mother finally officially approved and blessed Camilla. However, it is not hard to guess that for the Duchess of Cornwall, Elizabeth II's statement meant much more. She was finally accepted into the family. After a long wait, the United Kingdom finally officially gained a king. On the 6th of May 2023, the coronation of the new monarch, Charles III, took place. Alongside the newly crowned monarch, his wife Camilla participated in the ceremony. The country's First Lady received her long-awaited title. According to the long-established centuries-old tradition, the title Queen Consort is bestowed upon the wives of reigning monarchs and signifies that the individual holding it is queen not by birth, but only as long as her husband occupies the throne. She has no rights to the succession to the throne. However, it is worth noting that the clarifying word consort is often omitted in reference to the king's wife, including in official documents, a change that King Charles III is actively pursuing. This was also the case with Queen Elizabeth II's mother, who was the previous Queen Consort. Until the death of King George VI in 1952, she was simply called Queen, and after his death and her daughter's coronation, she lived another 50 years, holding the unofficial title of Queen Mother. However, the situation was somewhat more complicated for the Duchess of Cornwall. Experts agreed that Camilla was unlikely to receive this title because both for her and for Charles, still a prince at that time, this marriage was the second, and the Anglican Church does not recognize divorce. For this reason, in 2005, On the eve of the heir to the throne's wedding, Buckingham Palace announced that a special title of Princess Consort had been prepared for Camilla, which had not existed until then. If this scenario had been implemented, it would have meant that all subsequent wives of kings would receive the same title. As the head of the Anglican Church, Elizabeth II changed the existing rules and did not allow the creation of a dangerous precedent, thereby putting the final period to the question that had concerned many royalists. However, according to royal expert Tom Bower, Camilla's role could pose a serious challenge to the popularity of the monarchy, as King Charles strives to leave his mark. Despite the king's busy schedule, which included approximately 571 royal meetings and 2 state visits last year, these numbers seem relatively low compared to previous years. Tom Bower pointed out the crucial factor behind this decline: Camilla's limited ability to embark on long journeys, leading to a rare number of state visits to remote places such as Australia. In an interview with GB News, Tom Bower expressed his concern about Camilla's health and its potential impact on King Charles III's reign. "I do not think she is that healthy, and this is somewhat a burden for Charles himself. She does not want to fly to Australia, avoids trips to Kenya, and her travels rarely go beyond Paris or Berlin due to the discomfort from changing time zones and related issues." Moreover, Tom Bower revealed that Camilla does not like her role as queen, as she is fully aware that a significant portion of the British population harbors doubts about her presence in the monarchy. "I do not think she sees herself as a leader or a monarch who embodies the values considered important for a leader in this role." Although Tom Bower acknowledged that Camilla brings personal happiness to Charles, he emphasized that this harmonious dynamic does not necessarily lead to the creation of a stronger, more meaningful, and engaged royal family as the public desires. For more than a decade, Charles and Camilla had to wait for the day when, in many aspects, the sensitive British society would shift its anger to mercy and allow them to simply enjoy their relationship. After the coronation in 2023, all supporters of Charles and Camilla expected that finally, they would have their happily ever after. However, in early 2024, the king faced cancer. He learned about the diagnosis after surgery. After a course of treatment, Charles quickly returned to his duties. Royal commentator Robert Jobson stated that Camilla did not want to publicize her beloved husband's diagnosis. But as we already know, the monarch insisted on it. Not only because he was obliged to inform his people about such important news. Charles wanted to set an example himself by showing the importance of regular checkups and keeping a close eye on one's health. Now their lives are built according to an incredibly exhausting schedule, which would seem challenging to anyone, not to mention people over 70 years old. Therefore, it is not surprising that, when they have free time, they go to places where they can relax, explains royal commentator Joshua Rum. The secret to the royal couple's happiness is simple. British journalist and television host Jenny Bond, who has covered the royal family's life for more than 14 years, revealed what truly strengthens the relationship between the current king and Camilla Parker Bowles, and what he genuinely lacked in his relationship with his first wife, Princess Diana. According to Bond, King Charles III and his second wife are fortunate to share the same sense of humor, which allows them to laugh heartily together at the same things. Laughter and fun are the two pillars that initially brought ease to Charles and Camilla's relationship. This attracts and draws people to each other. Each feels that the other understands them. Humor is one of the greatest gifts that save long-term relationships. It has connected Charles and Camilla from the very beginning, asserts Jenny. According to the expert, the future king's chosen one understood his boyish, somewhat silly sense of humor and could laugh along with him at a foolish comedy show, creating an atmosphere of relaxation in their relationship. According to Bond, Princess Diana was also a laugher, but she laughed more at her husband than with him, and that was the problem. Furthermore, in Bond's opinion, Queen Camilla, like no one else, knows how to calm her husband. She subtly picks up on one of his 50 shades of moods and knows exactly when to say something or, conversely, when to step aside and let him explode. I think this has always been one of her strongest sides. She just knows how to deal with him, says Jenny. Based on her reporting experience, the television host concluded that Queen Camilla is almost the only person capable of approaching her husband and talking to him when he is in one of his angry moods. Moreover, he is unlikely to shout at her in return, as he does with his subjects and relatives. Jenny Bond's opinion is shared by another royal expert, the British television star Ryan Mark Parsons, who believes that although Camilla is difficult, she has always been devoted to Prince Charles. And now, after the coronation, she proves her loyalty every day. She does not complain. She does not argue. This is a mantra that every working member of the royal family should remember and adhere to, believes Parsons. Doctors' forecasts are currently favorable, but the British are preparing for any outcome. And now the question arises, can Queen Camilla come to power if her husband passes away first? Many were indeed surprised to see that Camilla, after the coronation, became officially queen and not queen consort. This is the title traditionally bestowed upon the spouses of reigning monarchs. For example, Queen Elizabeth II's husband, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was not even king but prince consort. Nevertheless, Camilla was given a simplified status, possibly so that it would not appear too cumbersome. However, this does not affect the actual situation. Camilla currently has no royal powers, except for ceremonial ones. After the death of Charles III, she will not be able to inherit the throne. With a 99% probability, Prince William will take the throne. Succession to the throne in the United Kingdom occurs only among blood relatives. Camilla herself will receive the title of the Widow Queen. It was first bestowed upon Queen Adelaide of Saxe-Meiringen in 1830, when her husband, King William IV, died. Since the Duchess of Cornwall is simply the widow of a deceased royal family member, she will not have significant power, although she may be able to influence court affairs in some way. According to British media reports, Charles issued a royal decree stating that the change of his wife's title should be reflected in every prayer for the royal family, as well as in any form of service permitted for use in the Church of England. The change took effect upon Camilla's coronation at Westminster Abbey. Naturally, changing Camilla's title did not make her the reigning queen, like Elizabeth II or Queen Victoria. In fact, she still remains the consort, as the king's wife. However, historically, the wives of reigning British monarchs were titled Queen Name: Queen Mary, Queen Adelaide, Queen Alexandra, Queen Charlotte, and so on. Now there is Queen Camilla. Many ordinary people who have met Camilla in person also say that she is very sincere. For instance, once at an event in the London Tower, Camilla was presenting awards as part of a BBC radio competition for young storywriters. After a short speech, she took the time to speak with children and their parents. An 11-year-old girl was simply charmed by how the Duchess of Cornwall spoke with her, inquiring about her hobbies. It would be amazing if she one day becomes queen. She remembered my biography, my story, and it was really great, recalled the young author. The girl's mother added that she was surprised by Camilla's lack of pretense. She simply and matter-of-factly asked about life's challenges. This viewpoint was supported by BBC radio host Chris Evans. She is a true business lady, he said. Camilla herself says that she genuinely likes ordinary people, and that other people's lives are much more interesting than her own. She does not take herself too seriously, even at the most official events. It is the formal situations where everything seems to go wrong and everyone freezes that she finds the most amusing. This explains why so many photographs of Camilla depict the Duchess laughing or smiling in seemingly unsuitable situations. After marrying Prince Charles, she took on the role of his assistant, president and patron of more than 90 charitable organizations. According to experts, due to her hectic schedule, the Duchess of Cornwall spends barely a third of her life at home. The rest of the time, she is the workhorse of the royal family. The royal family biographer Penny Junor explains Camilla's unique fate in her own way. She believes that Camilla instilled in Charles a belief in himself that he never had, and this made him much more likable and, therefore, much more popular with the public. Jenner is convinced that her positive influence on Charles strengthened the monarchy, and this was appreciated by the majority of Britons.